Hi, welcome back to PSLE Math Model Drawing. Now, today we are going to continue looking at how to draw a Primary 5 word problem in Primary 6. Right? This can be a Primary 5 or Primary 6 problem. Okay, now before we start the lesson proper, now just to let you know that sometimes sometimes the problem may get very hard to draw, especially when you go to Primary 6, and then the model will be very challenging to draw out. So what our advice is, there are methods that can replace the model method. So if you find that the questions get too hard to draw, especially if it's a before and after problem, then a suitable method will be to use the tabulation method or the before and after table. So that will replace the model drawing, because sometimes the questions can get really very hard to draw, and usually students will have a lot of difficulty trying to draw out the model. So there's still a backup method, which is the tabulation method. If you see before and after problems, then you may want to think of using other methods like table method. Okay, but today is a model drawing lesson, so we are going to continue with our model drawing. So how do we draw out sentence by sentence? So let's read the question. Now, Donald bought a book. He read an equal number of pages each day. So I'm going to highlight the keywords, which is an equal number of pages every day. At the end of the 20th day, he had read 5/12 of each. So if you see fractions, you can use the fractions to draw the model. The denominator refers to the book. So if you draw a rectangle, right, this represents the storybook, which is don't know how many pages, right? So this rectangle represents the pages in the storybook, and you cut it into child boxes. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And he has read five boxes already. Alright, so that is at the end of the 20th day. Now, the model is very flexible, it's very creative. You can put the day on the model. Like, how do you do that? At the end of the 20th day. So the dotted line is the 20th day. It means that 20 days have passed by already. So which means that every box is how many days? Every box will be 4 days, right? You take 20, divide by 5. Every box will be 4 days, which means that you need 4 days to read one box of pages. Okay, 4 days to read one unit of pages or one box of pages. Okay, so I'm going to label he has read 5/12 of the storybook at the end of the 20th day. And then at the end of the 23rd day, so where are you going to indicate the 23rd day? So if every box is 4 days, then I'm going to cut a bigger part here, which is your 3 days, because 20 plus 3 will be the 23rd day. So I'm going to use a dotted line, same thing like this, and this will be the 23rd day. Alright, and of course there's one day left. Right, so you draw a dotted line to show the 23rd day, and the rest of the boxes will be 4 days each. Okay, so that's how you label. So you need to label your model. So at the end of the 23rd day, there were 225 pages left to read. So which means that from here until here. Okay, so you have another 225 pages left to read. So how many pages were there in the book? So your question mark is to find how many pages were there in the whole storybook, and that's your question mark. And you're done. So your model is done already. So of course, if you draw a good model, then you don't need to look at the question. So if you count the days, how many days do you need to read 225 pages? So you have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, and 25 days. So you need 25 days to read 225 pages. So which means that one day will be how many pages? So one day will be 225 and divide by 25. And you will get one day, you will read 9 pages. So you need one day to read 9 pages. Then how many pages were there in the storybook? So how many days do you need to read the whole storybook? Then you take 4 days multiplied by how many boxes? So there are 12 boxes, so you multiply by 4 days, that will give you 48 days. So you will need 48 days to read the whole storybook. And if you need 48 days to read the whole storybook, how many pages are there in the storybook? Then you take 48 times 9, because you need 1 day to read 9 pages. So 48 days will be how many pages? So 48 times 9, so there are 432 pages in the storybook, and that's how you solve. Okay, so it's a very simple model and not very hard to draw actually. So if the question is easy to draw out the problem, then I would suggest you use model drawing. Don't use other methods, right? When you think of other methods or other ways of solving, when you have trouble trying to draw the model, then you will need to think of other methods like table method, like grouping, and so on. Okay, but otherwise, model drawing is the most common method to use. Okay, let's go to the next question, which is quite wordy. Now, Dylan had 3 boxes, A, B, and C, containing a total of 1512 stamps. The number of stamps in box A is 2/7 of the total number of stamps. So again, if you see a fraction, then you can use that to draw your model. Box A has 2, right? 2 boxes. And the total number of stamps will be 7 or 7 units. Alright, 7 boxes or 7 units. So when you draw your rectangle, you will use the fraction to draw out the model. And then Dylan sold 190 stamps from box B, and he also sold 1/4 of the stamps in box C. So how do you interpret the 1/4? It means the stamps in box C, there are 4 boxes, and out of the 4 boxes, he sold 1 box. And the number of stamps left in box B was twice the number of stamps left in box C. Alright, so the number of stamps left in box B was 2 times, and the number of stamps left in box C was 1 time. So how many stamps were there in box B at first? Okay, now it looks very wordy and there is a lot of things to take note. But when you draw the model, you don't draw anywhere you like. You always start the drawing from the beginning of the problem. Then you draw forward. Right, from the first sentence, you draw the next sentence, then the next sentence, and so on. So you don't start your drawing anywhere you want. You always start the drawing at the beginning of the problem. So if the first sentence you can't draw, like for example, Dylan had 3 boxes A, B, C, containing a total of 1512 stamps. If you are not sure how to draw, you jump. You skip to the next sentence. And then you go to the second sentence and you can draw already. Box A has 2 boxes. So you cut 2 boxes. And the total number of stamps will be 7 boxes. So which means that there must be altogether 7, right? 7 boxes. So your B and C must be how many boxes? Your B and C must be 5 boxes. Okay, so let me just stretch the arrow sign a little bit. Let me just push it a bit further away. So your B and C will be 5 boxes. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Because the total number of stamps is 7. Right, 7 boxes or 7 units, whichever you want to call it. Okay, so you draw until here already. Now, Dylan sold 190 stamps from box B. Now, it is perfectly fine to draw another set of model. So you can have more than one set of model. So for example, I can draw another rectangle for box B again, right? So box B, I don't know how many stamps in box B, so I will just anyhow draw, right? Just any length. Okay, so box B, and Dylan sold 190 stamps from box B, and you have to label, this is the sold, and then this must be the left. So very important to label, because if you don't label, then you won't be able to understand what your model is about. So you have to label. And then he sold 1/4 of the stamps in box C. So I don't know whether box C has more or box B has more. So we can anyhow draw. Okay, we can just assume. Alright, if it's wrong later, you can always make adjustment. Alright, model drawing is not perfect. If you find that there's something wrong with the drawing, then you just erase and adjust. Okay, so box C has how many boxes? How many boxes must you cut the rectangle for box C? It must cut into 4 boxes. Okay, something like this. Okay, 4 boxes. And then he sold 1 box. Okay, 1 box over here. And then the rest of this must be the left. So he will have 3/4 of the stamps left in box C. Alright, and then what else do we do? Now, then so you're until here already, and the number of stamps left in box B was twice. So this is twice, okay? Maybe you can call it 2 times, and then twice the number of stamps left in box C, which is 1 time. Okay, got it? So you can add all this information onto your model. So the number of stamps left in box B was 2 times of the stamps left in box C. And if you And anything else to add on to the model? How many stems were there in box B at first? So you may want to put your question mark over here like this. Okay, and your model is done. A simple model, or rather not very hard to draw. So when you draw your model, it can be a bit different from my drawing. But if you have everything all indicated on the model, right, the labels, the question mark, the numbers, then you don't really need to look at the question again. So you look at the model and use the model to write your steps, okay, to create your steps. So how do you create your steps? Now, is there any steps you can write from the model? So if you look at your model, I can call the boxes here units. Okay, all these are units. Okay, and if one time is 3 units, then 2 times must be 6 units. So this will be 6 units. Okay, yep, and we forgot one thing. We forgot to put the total number in the model. See this important total, right? So make sure you have all the numbers on the model. So the total is 1512, and immediately what can we do? We can find how many is one box. You take 1512 and divide by 7, right? So 1512 divided by 7 boxes, right? So you will get one box will be how many? One box will be 216. So which means that this is 216, 216, and continue, right? So on. So every box is 216 and so on. Okay, and you can see that box B and box C, how many are there altogether? You take 216 times 5, right? So 216 and you multiply by 5, that will give you how many in box B and C, and you will get 1080. And whatever numbers you have found, add on to your model and it becomes clearer. Okay, then you can see a lot of things already. Then you can see that box B plus box C will be equal to 1080. For example, you add up all the units here, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there are 10 units plus 190. That will be equal to 1080. So what is your 10 units? So 1080, and then you minus 190, and you get 890. So your 1 unit will be, you divide, and you take 890 divided by 10. So your 1 unit is 89. Okay, so that's how you get 1 unit. And once you can get 1 unit, what happens? Then you can solve already. Alright, so 1 unit is equal to 89. Okay, so how many stems in box B at first? Then you just take 6 unit plus 190. So what is 6 unit? 6 unit will be 89 times 6, and you will get 534. And 534 plus 190, that will give you how many stems in box B at first, and you will get 724. So that's how you solve, right? So not that very hard if you can draw out the problem. So this is a 5-mark question in the school exam paper. So you can see that that model method is actually very common. So if you find that it is not hard to draw, then you should try to draw out the problem. But if it's hard to draw, then you will need to think of other ways of solving, like table method, grouping, assumption. All these methods, they are your alternatives. All right, they are your other ways of solving. Okay, now so we come to the end of our model drawing lesson. All right, so stay tuned for the next lesson, and we will continue to focus on how to draw out the problem. All right, so see you next lesson.